Welcome to The Sensitive Warrior, where feeling everything is your superpower. Hi, my name is Doreen Lang, and I am your host. And I'm also author of Embracing Venus, Achieve a Life Lit Up for Highly Sensitive People. And this is my book here for your viewing pleasure. And I am here today talking about sensitivity and highly sensitive people. However, we have a very interesting guest today. We have Todd Breitenstein. Welcome, Todd.
Hi.
Hi. So Todd's been here before, but I'm being very selfish. I find him very interesting, and I know the listener has told me the same thing, so I have him back again. So we're very fortunate. He's working on something very interesting that most people maybe wouldn't put together. But for Todd, it is a natural, symbiotic topic, and I'm going to let him kind of talk about that today. So let me start him with a question so we can get right into it. So, what first drew you to both health coaching and ecological restoration, and how did you come to blend the two?
Blending the two. So health coaching and ecological restoration. So we would think typically of ecological restoration as the restoration of an ecological system. So think of a wetland and somebody poured a bunch of chemicals into the wetland and killed all the plants. And the ecological restoration would be going into that system and repairing it back to an original state, which is part of my training. This is what I studied in college. And so I've done this on different scales, backyards to larger scales. And then it occurred to me that with health coaching, the process is very much the same. It's mind, body, and spirit, and there's a restoration process that's happening within it. And then thinking about my own experience with this body has been very much about how I take care of it and things that I was willing to do to it to seek out homeostasis or to seek balance. Unfortunately for me, a lot of that was self-abuse and drugs and alcohol and late nights and not an awesome way of taking care of myself. And what really occurred to me, though, is if you truly care about yourself, you truly care about what you put into you, and not only food and medicine, but also what you receive in your thoughts and how you think about yourself, that translates a lot to how we treat the outside world. And so if I really want to save the earth, or if I really want people to care about the earth, which is really important to our bodies, that we have Mother Earth here. Without it, we don't have this opportunity to experience the body and all of the lessons that we can learn through the body, because it is really remarkable, all the emotional states that we can go through with the body that are informing our soul of different experiences tied to material world.
Absolutely.
So I want to help people restore that inner peace through health coaching, so that way they'll be more willing to engage in a process of restoring Mother Earth and taking care of the planet, so that way we can then take care of ourselves. Because
I love that.
I was so full of fear for a long time about the future of the planet. Honestly, a lot of the way I treated myself was in a reaction to what I saw as just wanton disregard for this spectacular gift that we have been given in the earth. It's so beautiful. It's really just incredibly beautiful, and it's always in balance. And I was really afraid that we were going to destroy that. I've come to realize that the only thing that's going to be harmed is the human race. Mother Earth is totally fine. Its scale is on a time that we don't understand. It's so much bigger and longer than what we can even conceive of. And so to fear that it won't be okay is totally irrational, which would actually be me being irrational based on my own fear that I'm not going to be okay.
Right.
Which is why it's so intricately tied.
Yeah.
Ecological restoration and human restoration. If we restore the human species, then we restore the earth, right? And what really fascinates me about it is that the more we learn through science, the more we learn that there is no difference. We're all the same. I share 70% of my DNA with trees. The same exact mathematical formula that creates the human systems is the same mathematical formula that creates all Earth systems. So we are one and the same. We're intricately tied. There's really no difference. And so the sooner we get to that understanding, the sooner we're less likely to hurt ourselves, the sooner we're less likely to hurt what sustains the human body, which is Earth. We need it. We need the air. We need the water.
Yeah.
And then all the things that we eat from it as well.
Well, you had a way of putting the health coaching and ecological restoration together, like, beautifully. I mean, that is the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said a couple of really interesting things. First of all, as a highly sensitive person, the stick that breaks our back or our biggest challenge is to feel overwhelmed. You're taking in all sorts of energy, good and bad, and that tends to tip us over the scale, right? So some people self-isolate, some people abuse alcohol, they abuse food, abuse people, abuse other people's energy. They feel completely overwhelmed by it. And when you talked about your experiences, right, and how you really have to take care of yourself, but what people do is they just push down how they're feeling and mask it, right? They mask it. So the work that you're doing for people is helping them get clarity, right, around, first of all, why are you doing this, and look how it's affecting you, right? Mm-hmm. And then try to get them to also, I think this is the cool part, I think, what you just shared was, when you do share that information with people about the Earth and how we're so much alike and how important and how we need to work together, but the DNA being part of the DNA, I think that would just put the light on so clearly for people, you know? So they feel as though they're not everything, right? The big ego. They can really look at themselves as almost like a small part in this enormous Earth. But we need all those small parts to be extremely healthy, right? So what do you find when you talk to people? What do you find people's kind of their deepest pain with all this? You know, with when they're struggling and they're either over drinking or they're kind of abusing themselves, you know, what do you find that people talk about the most?
I would say it's typically, and they don't realize this, but it's attachment to the ego and what the ego desires.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
So the ego wants more and more all the time, and it's never satisfied. There's two things I know the ego doesn't want: love and God, because they're outside of its control. So the ego always wants to be in control of everything, and that leads us to wanting more control over how we look, how we feel, what we have, what we do, how we relate with other people, how they relate to us, all of those things that actually inform our self-esteem, which is our ego, in many different forms. And so when it's not satisfied, we feel restless, right? And we ignore the two things that we are, which is love and God, which is one and the same. And by doing that, we constantly are self-sabotaging those two things in any way that we can. The closer we get to love, the harder we push away, because we can't control it, yet we want it, so we're always seeking it out, right? We want that affirmation of someone loving us, but in reality, our ego doesn't want that because it can't control it. And so it will work very hard to undo it for us. And then where do we go and what do we do? So working with me isn't me telling you anything, right? I can't help any person. I can only offer them the space to talk and then give them questions that hopefully turn them to look at themselves in a way that will lead to a greater understanding. I could have somebody tell me to read your book. It will be so beneficial to me 1,000 times, and I'll never read it, right? Until one day I happen upon it randomly at Savers, and I'm like, oh, look at this, and I pick it up, and I read it, and it's super important to me, right? Had it been read 10 years ago, it might have meant nothing to me.
Right.
And I can't help you figure that out. Like, I can help you look, but if I tell you to do something, it's never gonna benefit you in any way. And so just being together for 30 minutes and asking questions that lead you to ask yourself questions, that's how you heal. And it's how you come to, you can never ask a question of yourself of something big, like, what am I? Or why am I here? Or why do I behave this way? Why is this important to me? Without your subconscious then picking it up and working on it. And it'll bring you the answers if you're willing. If you're willing. Like, this is the whole thing.
This is the whole thing. And I'm going to jump in for a quick minute because, as you know, I provide Reiki for people, and I work with people who are highly sensitive, and I coach them on getting clarity around what's going on with lots of questions and get them dive deep. But I'll start out and say, this is a partnership. Are you committed? Mm-hmm. Because you can't show up and be thinking about that you have to go food shopping after this or something that happened this morning. Can you be present? Mm-hmm. Can you clear the cobwebs? Can you commit to putting time onto yourself? That's a big ask for some people. Mm-hmm. Do you find that to be?
I love Reiki because it's unseen, and yet you can feel it, and it helps people in exactly what we're talking about, inside, to find their healing presence. So things that are of material, like of the earth, right? I can learn how to make a mug, right? I can learn that. But I might have a really hard time learning how to make a television or a circuit, right? Mm-hmm. There are things that I can and can't learn, but how to heal myself, how to access that universal energy that you share and help people feel and heal through is already inside all of us.
Right.
Everything that we need when it comes to a spiritual understanding, a deeper understanding of what we actually are, is already on the inside.
Right.
It's not something that I can tell you how to access. You have to learn how to do it yourself. But there are questions that we can work through. And most of it has to do with setting aside the ego's desires and all the things that we think we need to do in this human body, in this human experience, that actually keep us from knowing ourselves on the inside at a soul level. And that's where all the magic is. You literally heal people just with your hands, just by opening yourself to this flow of divine light and love that flows through everything, because your heart is there and you love, and that is huge, right?
Well, I do see it, as you said. You said, I don't, heal people. You bring them to a place where they can gain an understanding and access that. And honestly, that is what I do. I really don't. I don't heal. And I'll give you a little story. An amazing woman. I was doing a talk in, I think it was Plymouth, and she came up to me after and she said, I'd love to work with you. I said, okay, how can I help you? So she came in and she talked about a lifetime of taking care of her husband and her children and putting herself really last. And I asked, and I wasn't being fresh, but I said, and how is that working for you? Mm-hmm. And she has scleroderma so badly that they didn't give her a lot of time. Her arteries are hardening. She's really stiff. She holds all her energy inside. And so we started working together about just kind of releasing some of that. And she loved to kind of have someone on her team advocating to help her talk to her husband about, I really can't enjoy my mornings with the sports so loud on the TV in the living room feeding into the kitchen. I can't relax and enjoy it. And when I got her to say that to him, and she found her own words, he said, I didn't realize it bothered you, which to me is crazy because it's so loud, how can it not bother anybody? But he really didn't understand that, and he stopped it. And she was so proud of herself. Now, this is after being married for 60 years.
Wow.
So when we continued to work together, and she was kind of feeling better and better, but when she went home, all those habits, they just stayed with her. Mm-hmm. So I got a call last week. She passed away. And I was so sad to hear it. Her daughter said, you came to her at the right time because I haven't seen her this light. It would last for a couple of days after being with you, and then she really did go back to her habits. But when I worked with her originally, I said to her, this is a partnership. Are you in it to win it? Are you here to be here and pause and give yourself a place? And she said, I really am, finally. That took her so long. So why is it that we're not helping people understand this about themselves when they're very small? Why? Why do we have to come to this age where we say, I get it? What?
Collectively, there's a ton of conditioning that gets passed from our parents, from their parents to us, that we just naturally think is correct, right? So we just kind of follow that. Why we went away from inner healing and from focusing so much on the external, it kind of makes sense because the body is material and it has material needs. And
that's a good point.
Comfort is part of that.
On the outside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ignoring the inner workings of ourselves to keep up with that conditioning, that everything has to be just so, is a lot. It's a lot of generational. It's a lot of
generational.
This is how we do it, right? Like nobody in the neighborhood knows what goes on inside of our house.
Right.
Like unless it's perfect and something that we would want to brag about, so to speak. Maybe we don't brag about it, but we wouldn't want anybody to know. Well, like that same thing happens on the inside. What goes on in the house, this house, stays inside this house, because that's what we do with our actual physical health. And same thing with work, and same thing with school, and all of the things, right? Except for the milestones, right? Then we open up and let everybody be there for us. The graduations, the weddings, the births, right? That's like how we consider ourselves normal, so to speak, because we're doing what everybody else does. It's just kind of the condition. And then we don't ask for help until the wheels come off.
Right. And the medical world, of course, is based on science, right? And I respect that tremendously. However, I find that the nurse practitioners will tend to spend a little more time with you. And they may say, and they will say, some of them will say, what's going on, right? So we're getting closer by the people who can spend a little bit more time with you, right? So when you're working with people, what kinds of questions will you ask to help them get to that place where they may just kind of stare and think, yeah, I never really thought of that before or asked myself that before. So what kinds of questions do you share?
I think a great question is, what's gone right this week?
What's gone right?
Yeah. Let's start with one thing that's gone right this week.
Are you doing that to keep them in a positive way, or to learn about what they feel is good for them?
It's a great way to start looking at that everything isn't going bad. It's a great place to start.
Tell me something good, right? Tell me something good.
Let's start with that. Well, this is the way that you work with health and wellness is by reframing all negatives into positives, finding a way to turn that what seems as just this overwhelming obstacle that's ruining your life into the reality of what it is, which is a gift, a true gift that is there for you to experience. What I've come to find is that the harder something is, the easier it actually is. And the easier it is, the harder it was. It's just that we think it was so much more challenging. Oh, well, that was easy. Yeah, that's because the Spirit helped. That's because we had already done a whole bunch of work to make that easy in our minds. The stuff that's hard, it only seems hard because we say it is, right? And if you look at it that way, then of course it's always going to be difficult to take a look at yourself or to, I never stick with a diet. All right, there you go. You just said, I never stick with a diet. Right? So getting around behind that. When was the last time that you were really good with a diet? Let's talk about that. What was going right? What successes were happening in that?
Reframing and bringing it right up front about the positives.
Yeah.
Because they're there.
I am not experiencing allergies this spring. 3 years ago, I was having the worst allergies of my life. I was like, my face felt like it was on fire. I couldn't breathe through my nose. My eyes were all scratchy. Like, it was so intense, right? And I was very much into my meditation and my breathing exercises, but it was so much that I couldn't actually breathe. And I knew which pollen it was because of the season, and it was tree pollen. And so as I went to bed, I knelt beside my bed and started praying, and I was really frustrated that I wasn't going to be able to pray and meditate that night the way I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And I thought about the pollen from the trees, and I thought about how much I love trees. And I thought to myself, I love trees so much. And my heart just opened. Like, I could feel my heart just opening with love, like just this feeling of gratitude towards the trees. Just, I love trees. And then the next thought was, there's no reason my body should be having a negative physical response to the pollen of trees. I love trees. And I got into bed and I laid and I managed to do some meditation. When I woke up in the morning, the allergies were gone. And I realized to myself that I will never have allergies again because I love trees and there's no reason why I should have a physiological response to their pollen. I will never have allergies again. Ever. I will not. This is what I'm talking about. It's a mindset tied to my heart, tied to my understanding of what's going on within my body. I'm 3 years into that, no allergies. This is the third year, so that was actually 4 years ago now that experience happened. We're well into...
So not just spring allergies, period.
I will never have allergies again, right? So think about that. I'm saying I will never have allergies again. That's a total shift from, oh my gosh, spring's coming. The weatherman just said pollen's about to peak. I better stock up on...
Sudafed and Zyrtec and everything else, right?
Exactly. Right? I will never have pollen. I will never have allergies again. Like, this is amazing. But it's not actually amazing. It's just reality.
It's your vibration, right? Your vibration completely shifted when we were talking about it. You even appeared differently.
Right now.
Yeah.
It's because it's amazing. It's
amazing is the wrong word. It's beautiful. Because our body has this capacity. It truly does. Amazing is things that are beyond my comprehension, right? Like the universe, God, the whole, like, if there's one universe, it's impossible that there isn't two universes. I can't
wrap my head around multiple universes. It's too big for me.
Well, you've done so much work on yourself. So much, because I know you now, and we're in the art my group. I host a highly sensitive persons group, but it's much more than that. It's a place where people can hold a place, be seen, be listened to without judgment. And we have a great group of people, and we're always looking for more interesting people to join us. But you've done a lot of work on yourself. I know you have, and you share it, which is why I think you're amazing, and I love being with you, and I know people do in the group. But do you struggle? Do you still struggle with, do you ever go backwards? Does your vibration ever start to pull you down, or events or feelings or needs or desires, and do you have to lift yourself back up? Or can you maintain the vibration of this, I will never have allergies?
I can, and I have been. Do I always feel 100%? I don't even want to say no. Like, this is the whole thing. It's like there's something they call the pink cloud effect, right? So when somebody gets sober, right after they get sober, there's this like reintroduction to themselves that you feel really high, like you feel emotionally and physically like you're floating on a pink cloud.
Sure.
I visualize myself as an astronaut surfing on a pink cloud into eternity. And that will never go away. When people say, oh, it crashes, I'm like, well, why does it have to crash? It only crashes because we say it has to crash. But if you say that I will always be riding on the pink cloud, surfing like an astronaut, why won't you be? There's only one thing in this world that really is that significant that we should ever be upset. And that's the loss of a loved one. That's only if we think that they're actually gone.
Right.
But everything is eternal. Energy is not created nor lost. That's science. We're energy. That's actually a huge part of the ecological restoration point, is that the trees have been telling me that their medicine isn't something that you have to actually ingest. It's just an energetic medicine. It's why when you go into the forest, all the forest bathing works. There is some I can't even say it. The trees release these chemicals that are full of healing properties, which reduce that they've scientifically shown spike your killer T cells, so they boost your immune system. Like, that's science.
Right.
But it's more than that, because as I started at the beginning saying, I am the same thing mathematically.
Right.
So why would I need to be anything other than with them?
Coexisting, right?
To experience their wisdom. Trees have been here for a long time, and they have a far greater wisdom based on earth time than we do, right? So to open myself to that is deeply healing and brings...
It's deeply healing. You know, as an HSP, people say, I say, take a walk. It's not just about putting one foot in front of the other. It's about the energy you're getting outside, that you're receiving through, because you can't see it. The Earth's energy coming up, the atmospheric energy, the tree energy, the grass, the wind that's blowing it into you, blowing it around you. I know people will say it's woo-woo. It's not, because when you get back in, you feel like you just had a little mini vacation, but you only went around the block. It's very powerful.
Yeah. So the oxygen that the trees give off holds their wisdom. So you breathe that in. I love this. I read this in some book and was just like, oh, that's so perfect. Because
it's a beautiful thought.
Taking everything, right? So this is really cool. So bees, when they hold together their hive, there's this special cement that they make. It's called propolis. And propolis is highly sought after, second only to the royal jelly, which is super intense that they take the royal jelly. But anyway, the propolis is cement that the bees go and harvest the sap from trees, and not just pine trees, but all the trees. They get sap. Sap is what the trees use to heal themselves. It's their life force. And sometimes there's wounds where that drips out. The bees literally land on that, gather it up, and bring it back to the hive and use it as glue to hold the
foundation.
The hive, to the frame. So if you eat that, think about what you're eating, right? Think about all of that knowledge and wisdom and force of literally millions of years of evolution on this planet being within, right? So that's earth time. But I want to get to soul time, because soul time is much different than earth time. And so focusing on all of the different practices that have been out there, from what Jesus taught to the Buddha to more contemporary people that talk about breath work, that talk about just silencing yourself to the point where you can experience the gift of creation. That is soul time.
That is soul time.
Yeah, and
this is what you work with when you work with people.
That's what nature gives us, is earth soul time, which that's a lot of time that you can ingest from just being open to the idea that you don't necessarily have to do thousands and thousands of hours of this forest time to actually experience that wisdom.
No.
One breath, one intentional breath.
I love it.
Right?
I
And then
love it.
take that with you and do it when you're at a stoplight or do it when you're waiting for the kids at pickup. That one breath.
Such excellent tips, Todd. Todd, as we wrap up, how can people get in touch with you? How can people work with you? How do they reach you?
They can find me through my website. So The Grateful Garden MA. That's
So The Grateful Garden MA.
.com.
.com.
Yes, that's a good way. Or the nonprofit website, which is ourgratefulgarden.org.
Ourgratefulgarden.org. Gotcha.
So, if you search for the Grateful Gardener, I'm pretty well known as that person on the South Shore. It comes up.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Or through you.
Yeah. You can reach me at Doreen at blossomhealingstudio.com. And thank you so much for coming. I think we really could probably talk another 30 minutes, but since the show's over, I have to say goodbye. But bye for now. And thank you all for joining me on The Sensitive Warrior. And please remember, feeling everything is your superpower, and that is why you're here. So thank you. Until next time, we'll see you soon.